Alrighty. So I have to actually wear, like all the other rooms, you don't have to, the speakers don't have to wear microphones, but apparently, I forgot that I put myself in the big room. I guess I was being optimistic that, you know, that everybody would be as enthusiastic about Slack as I am, and, you know, could be.
You're filling up the room.
I know, people are coming in. They heard there's going to be a show.
God.
For people who have seen me, seen my presentations before, I realized this morning that there's a crucial element of an Elmer presentation missing from this one. There will be no live coding during this presentation. We will not be debugging the CALI website. That's later this afternoon. But this morning we're just gonna talk about Slack. So. I guess everybody's done filtering in. I'm kind of killing time because then I figure, you know, we'll get done, and because who wants to be first in the lunch line? Awesome. Okay, so we'll go through this. I'm Elmer Masters. I'm the Director of Technology for the Center for Computer Assisted Instruction. That's CALI. I used to put the whole thing on like my name tags and stuff. I quit doing that because it would always cut off the last few letters of instruction or something. And I'm going to talk about Slack, which is a neat little new communication tool that we've been using at CALI, and I like it a lot. And I usually don't talk about like other people's software, so this is actually kind of different for me. But so we're going to just cover a couple of quick points. You know, I'll tell you a little bit about what Slack is. Why should you care? Or maybe it's why I should care. No, it's why you should care. How does CALI use it? And then what can you do with it? And then I'll throw in some pros and cons stuff at the end also, and, you know, if there's enough time or whatever. If anybody has any questions, feel free to sort of, you know, wave your hat, wave something. Don't throw Perrier bottles at me though, man. I hate that. So how many people have heard of Slack? Yeah, see, how many people are signed up for the Slack channel for the conference? The rest of you need to do that. You need to go to CALIcon15.cali.org and just put in your email address and hit enter, and that'll get you started on the road to Slack. Yeah, it's kind of an unfortunate name, but what can you do?
Cut up some slack.
Yeah, cut them some slack. You know, what are you doing at CALI these days? Well, you know, Slack. So this is actually, that's the logo, and this is a little bit from the front page of the website. So it's really, you know, it's an interesting kind of platform. So there's a little bit of history behind it. It hasn't been around long. So it's actually only been around since the fall of 2014. So, you know, wait, is it? No, not the fall of 2014. Fall of 2013, excuse me. See, when I mess up my speaker notes, then we've got trouble. The guy who put it together was a co-founder of Flickr. So it's somebody who knows how to sort of do social platforms. Of course, he sold Flickr to Yahoo. It's Yahoo, right? Owns Flickr. And then took the money and got out of there real fast, apparently. So, and then he went on to start a game platform, you know, one of those online games that I don't play, that kind of didn't work out so well. But while they were building the game, the developers built their own internal communications platform to kind of keep track of everything that was going on and communicate with each other. And after they shut down the game, they were wondering what to do next because they still had some money left. They realized that they could do something with this communication platform, and that's how Slack got going. So this is a picture of Slack from the general chat space in the CALIcon Slack thing. And as you can see, it looks kind of much, you know, pretty much like any other Slack or any other communications sort of thing, you know, that you've ever seen. It works a lot like IRC. Anybody remember IRC?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, sure, a few people. IRC, by the way, still around, still used, yeah. Internet relay chat, still used a lot, mostly by, developers and that sort of stuff.
Connect to Slack using IRC.
Yes, you can connect to Slack using IRC. You can connect using Jabber too. So, so there's different ways to sort of connect. Slack's, we'll talk about that a little bit, how easy it is to get in and out. And it's pretty easy to get going. I mean, you sort of get there, and it just there's a little bot that walks you through setting stuff up. Which if I captured the rest of Nick's, wait, we're going to try the laser pointer. Oh, there we go. So right, Nick wanted to know if I could just turn on the thing so people's names would show up instead of their handles. And I said, sure, but most people don't bother to fill out their profiles, so they don't put their names in. And then Nick reminded me that the Slack bot asks you to do that if you sort of stick around for a minute, and then and you don't ignore it. So so there's a lot of the Slack bot, which we can see right here, is sort of the kind of the brains of the operation. You can ask it questions. You can ask it to do things for you. Sometimes it can, sometimes it can't. And the thing, one of the things that I really like about it is that it just works. I mean, I haven't really had any issues with it performance-wise, even as they've added. They're rumored to be adding like hundreds of thousands of users a week to the thing. So, we haven't had any real performance issues with it, and CALI's been using it now for about 15 months. And we started paying for it a year ago, like last week. I know this because the renewal just came in. Yay. It's not that expensive. We do pay for it rather than just using the free version. So here we can go. You can go and if you haven't signed up yet, you can get started and sort of jump right in. And actually, Sarah.
Yes.
Could you keep an eye on the channel for this room in case anybody asks a question? In case, is anybody watching out there? Because all this is being live streamed, so it's very exciting. So one of the things about Slack is that it brings everything together, and there's lots of integrations, right? So you can pull in stuff. There are a lot of features. It still kind of focuses on software developers a little bit, so it's really easy to pull in stuff like GitHub and project management software and stuff like that. But they're slowly moving into sort of more business-oriented stuff, and so we're seeing rumors of integration with things like Salesforce and that sort of stuff. So, and then one of the things that they really pitch about this is how easy it is to search, right? So everything gets in, and as soon as it's added to Slack, and you can upload documents, you can put in pictures, you can write posts, you can do a lot of different stuff, it becomes immediately searchable, right? And that's, that's pretty good. The one thing that we have discovered, though, is that when we're chatting about stuff, we don't always remember. If we're using shorthand to talk about things, and then we go and look for it later, we don't always remember what it was that we typed. And so, Slack, just like anything else, only knows what we input to it. So if we're using some kind of shorthand to talk about a project, or we change the secret code word for the particular project that we have, and we forget what the old one was, yeah, it's still hard to find stuff. But that's more our fault than Slack's, I guess. So you can get there's an app on every platform. Including, there's actually a Windows app for it now. So if you're on like Windows 8, you go to the App Store, you can get an app. There's a Mac app, of course, and then there are mobile apps for Android and iOS, so that it'll do stuff like while we're talking, like my phone's vibrating away like 90 miles an hour because of a tweet channel. There's stuff going on. So. So a question a lot of people say, well, okay, so what, why should I care, right? I mean, you've all seen all kinds of chat stuff, like sort of come and go, and you wonder, is this different? Is it the same? How is it different? that's a really good question. And one of the things is that, so from sort of where I sit, the thing about Slack is that it just makes communication easier. So how many people in here have people working for them? So like technically you're a manager. Cool. How y'all doing? And then so the thing is that if you're a manager, a tool like Slack is great because it allows you to, it encourages open communication and it gives you a way of keeping track of what's going on, right? I mean, I come from a long line of like nosy grandmothers, right? So I like to know what everybody's doing, even if it's like technically none of my business. So I love Slack because I can just sort of, the staff, we have about a dozen channels that are open to everybody in the CALI staff. And so I subscribe to them all. And so I kind of keep an eye on, I don't read everything because I don't have time for that. But it's a thing, to sort of keep track of stuff. And so it's great if you're a manager because you can sit in that. And actually, we went too far because see, it ruined the joke because I held the key down too long, right? So actually, it just doesn't make any difference, right? The thing is it's just really great at like sort of keeping things going. Now, of course, as I'll mention a little bit later, it's not a panacea, right? I mean, if people don't pay attention to it, then it just doesn't work. But what it does do is it makes everybody on your team an equal member, right? So in Slack, there's like sort of, no bosses. Although you all know who your boss is, right? So, we've actually done, I mean, one of the things about CALI is that, we're spread all over the place, right? I mean, there are 2 of us in Atlanta, 2 in Minneapolis, and then 2 and a half, 2 and 1 sort of leaving, going out the door in Chicago. So, so we're sort of spread all over, and of course that's 2 different time zones also. It helps to have this kind of tool because we can't see each other every day. We've gone through a bunch of stuff over time. So we can talk a little bit about how CALI uses it. And this is now Slack is the primary way that we interact with each other at a distance, right? So aside from our monthly GoToWebinar all-hands staff meetings, we use Slack pretty much all the rest of the time, right? The CALI staff mailing list doesn't get used anymore. It's still there. We don't use it. My email traffic, because probably about half of my email was from CALI staff, so that's all gone. So I actually have less email, right? But I can respond better, because the Slack sort of takes priority, right? So I know if there's not like it sort of doesn't get lost in email, kind of thing. So yeah, I mean we killed email. And we also killed chat, right? We used to use Google. We used Google Talk. We used a couple other things over, at various points in time. But they all had issues with trying to stay connected and having clients, and we couldn't share files, and there was a whole bunch of stuff that made all those things kind of not so much fun to use. So, so we just kind of, over time, we just kind of got away from them, and it was. The other thing about them was there was often interference, right? If I was using Google Talk, then like my whole Google address book was in there, and sometimes people would just pop in, and and it wasn't work related, and it was kind of a drag. And I try to stay focused when I'm working, which I do mainly because I work at home, and I need to stay focused, or else I'm just playing with the cats, right? So and I don't get paid to do that. So. And we have been looking for a replacement for Google Talk, about a year and a half ago, as it was sort of being folded into Google Plus, which I don't know about you guys. I know there's some Google Plus fans in the room. I don't like Google+. So I don't have any particular reason for not liking it. It never really grabbed my attention, and it always felt like one more thing that I didn't want to keep track of. So this is, and now this is where the screen resolution thing bites me in the head, right? So, but that's okay, I know what's here. So this is, one of the things that we get is a control panel, and we can sort of see what's going on. I get weekly updates, tell me what emoji have been used the most, which is awesome. Also lets me know like sort of how many discussions there were, who was posting the most, what the division between private and public messages were, and that sort of thing. And so what's cut off on the end here is, and I could spend the next 10 minutes trying to resize this, but I'll spare you. It's not that interesting. But that's 59.8 thousand messages. That's how many messages we've sent in Slack in the past little over a year. And of those, 45% were in public channels, 54% were in direct messages among the staff. Okay, so we talk to each other a lot on it. Or at least I talk to everybody on it, I guess. That's one of the other. I am the top user in, I use it a lot, and like I said, it's that nosy grandmother thing, right? I just want to know what's going on. I feel lonely. I'm sitting in my office over the garage, I'm just, trying to stay connected. So we've got, let's see, we've got 515 files loaded in there. A lot of pictures. We share documents on Google. We share Word files. We share spreadsheets quite a bit. So there's a lot of stuff there. We've got it integrated. There we go. We have it integrated with a bunch of stuff. And I'll show you some of the things in a minute here. So we've got it integrated with things like, well, GitHub's off the edge over here. So GitHub, this is Nagios. So whenever a server goes, there's a trouble channel, right? We wired in a trouble channel. So whenever a server goes, whenever a server has a problem, a thing pops up in the trouble channel, and then that way everybody knows that the website's about to explode. And then everybody apparently except Dan, who doesn't monitor the trouble channel. No, actually, second, he's not here. Hi, Dan, in case you're watching at home. I know, you're always watching the trouble channel, right? I know. We've got a bunch of RSS feeds that are wired into it, Google Docs, and a couple other things. This is a little robot thingy. I'll show you that later because it's got a customizable. You can do customizable bots for it. So there's some interesting things that you can do there. This is just a little graph that shows you the difference between. This is just the past 10 days, and this was I did this I guess at probably the beginning of the week. So it shows you the messages and files, and it gives you a little bit of stuff, so 104 messages over 10 days. So, we've got 18 people on the team. I know it sounds like there's like a lot of people working for CALI, right? Well, no, they're just, what we do is that we can bring people in for specific projects. So, so we can sort of bring them into our communication channels. We don't have to open up all the channels, or we can even have a private group with those folks. But we can bring people in so that we can work with them, and they can experience the joy of Slack along with us. And then we cut off their access when we're done with them. Now it's actually we haven't gotten to that point yet, and all the folks that we've added, it tends to be some ongoing stuff. So. And then the interesting curve, I love that. I kind of like the readers versus writers thing, right? So this little gap there, where there's sort of this space between. This was a day that John added a whole bunch of the A to J author fellows who are working on the A to J clinical project. He added them, and so they all came storming in, and they read everything that they could get their hands on, and then that kind of tailed off. So. Again, we have a number of integrations that allow us to do some different sorts of things. There's a well-documented API for Slack that lets you write against it, so you can build your own integrations if the software platform that you have doesn't tie in. You can do that, and it talks in JSON, so that means that just about anything can be used with it. There's a data export feature to it, so if you want to get your data out, it'll do that for you. It gives it to you as a big chunk of JSON. It only exports the public channels, though. The private messages, the direct messages between two people, and there's a thing for private groups. Those are encrypted, so you can't see them. There's no sort of plain text version. So you only get the stuff that's in the public channels. And it provides you with links. The download provides you with links to the images that you are in the documents that you've uploaded in case you want to pull those out. And that's actually the part where I was tempted to put, this is the section where I was tempted to put code on the screen, but I decided not to. So, and then I already said that. So the CALI Slack, right? Oh, wait, what's supposed to be there? Oh, I know what. We could take a look. Actually, I'm not sure what we're going to see here. Completely.
Remember what my last direct message was to you?
Yeah, I know.
It's good on the screen.
Yeah. So this is actually the CALIcon15 Slack channel. So as you can see, there's like a lot of stuff going on here. But this is what it looks like. So we're in the tweet channel, and this is actually an integration, right? So what I discovered yesterday when I went to integrate to grab the Twitter hashtag for CALIcon15 and put it in the Slack was that the Slack Twitter integration would only listen to full accounts, right? So that wasn't going to work. So, but then there's if this then that, IFTTTs. People know about this?
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of cool. So I discovered quickly that there was an integration that allowed me to grab just the hashtag stuff. So this is Twitter hashtags, live things going on there. And then we've got, I've got a couple, let's see here. Wait, wrong button. Oh, where's my mouse cursor? There we go. Okay, so let's see. I see 2 direct messages. If I click on these, am I going to be mad? Okay. Yeah, who knows? So, okay, so this is actually the discussion that's going on in this room right now. Let's see what we got going. Let's see. Hello, frankly, I was expecting more, but all right. So, yeah, I know. Thank you, Tom. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Bruce. The integration stuff is kind of cool, and I will show you. Actually, we will switch over to the CALI channel or to the CALI Slack for just a second. I think I can do this pretty quickly. And okay, yeah, I left it on news. So this is our news channel. We actually have a giant RSS feed of about half the law schools in the country, so we can kind of keep track of what's going on. Mostly I read that, but so there's stuff from different law schools. So that's in one of the channels. You can see that we're kind of quiet on the CALI Slack. Nothing's lit up today because, well, we're all kind of busy. But let's take a look at the engineering channel, because I can demonstrate the CALI bot. Yeah, if you read that, you might get a glimpse of some of the stuff that we might be working on over the next like 5 years. So let's see if this works. I should be able to do this. Let's see. Hey, the CALI bot's live. So we have a CALI bot, and then so we can tell the CALI bot to, and some people in executive director type positions who I won't mention really like doing this. So you can tell the CALI bot to pug me, and then it goes out and finds a pug picture. Well, I don't think that pug's had a rough night. It goes out, it hits Tumblr and looks for pug pictures. So, so it's kind of interesting. That's sort of the demo thing. Some of the other stuff that we're working on with that, though, for internal use is wiring it into our reporting systems and the databases, which I don't have quite working yet because I've been making slides. So so that we can do stuff like just do to tell the CALI bot to show me lesson runs for yesterday, and it'll give us the show us the total number of lessons that were run yesterday and some breakdown analysis stuff. So we have high hopes for the CALI bot. Beyond drunken pugs, man, what's the chances of that? Anybody have any questions so far? Yes?
You mentioned that the personal communications were encrypted. What about documents? Is there a way to, if you're storing certain documents, you can have them encrypted on the page, or you have to do that separately?
I'm not exactly sure about that. I think that anything that's shared between, like if you direct message somebody, I think those are only shown between, actually I don't know. I mean, we probably wouldn't use it for like super sensitive stuff if we had super sensitive stuff. I don't know. Like I'm starting to see stuff like, like using Slack in the classroom, which I'm not buying, right? I don't think it's necessarily a good channel for lawyers to communicate with their clients. There are, yeah. There are some places where Slack isn't necessarily the tool to use for some of those things. And one of them might be really sensitive stuff. I mean, everything that's in here goes over HTTPS. So at least the NSA is having a little bit of a hard time reading it, I guess. But let's. So let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Oh, I know what else I wanted to show you. So so we can take a look at the Drupal channel. The Drupal channel actually captures a lot of different, besides Drupal security advisories. Right, so see, I need to know. It actually turns out this didn't bother us at all. But this is the GitHub integration. So with the GitHub integration, it actually shows us when stuff is getting branches are getting done and pull requests and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, that's kind of techy and whatnot, but the thing is that like the folks that are doing that right now are working as consultants for us, and that's a way for me to track what they're doing, right? So I don't have to go to GitHub. I'm on GitHub all the time anyway, but I don't have to watch for it directly in GitHub. It turns up here, and then we can see what's going on. It's also useful when we're, we'll use the Drupal 7 channel, for example, when we're doing code updates for the website. So I'll post that, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. we're going to do an update. It usually doesn't, and if there's going to be any downtime or anything like that. So there are a couple of things about the interface for Slack that are sort of worth looking at. You can always see what people are members of the channel. Actually, I missed that. Right? That's channel info, so that tells you sort of what's there. You can pin items to a channel, so if there's something important you always want to show up, you can see that. Let's see if I can get that to... No, that's not going to work. That's supposed to show me who's... Well, anyway. That tells me, would typically tell me who's subscribed to the channel. So there's a bunch of stuff there. Let's see. Okay, let me just come back to my slides.
Elmer, I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about, and I think this is a neat opportunity to, instead of sending emails out, thousands of emails, but with bigger organizations, I wonder if people would start taking such advantage of that immediate communication that every time you look at your computer screen, you've got, somebody else who wants your immediate attention. And then it's, at least with email, you can say, when an organizational, it's like, I'm going to check email at 10 a.m. And, who's ever emailed me before then just has to wait so I can get some work done, kind of thing. Where with this, it's popping. Can you, silence it?
You actually can silence it. So you can, if the apps have silence buttons so you can silence it. If you just use the web interface, you just don't open that tab, and then it's pretty silent. Yeah, and there've been as it's getting more use in bigger organizations. I mean, CALI's tiny, right? But as it's getting used in bigger organizations, I'm hearing about things where, like, a particular company will have whole different sort of Slack communities for different, like, divisions or departments. So that, and the other thing that comes with any of these tools is sort of setting the expectation about how it gets used and, like, sort of how immediate, how immediate stuff is. I mean, even like right now, like, sort of the best way to get my attention is to call me on the phone, which nobody does, right? So, but when they do, faculty call me, right? So, and I take their calls, right? And that usually, usually is a pretty good way for people to, to get a hold of me. I mean, it becomes, it does become another channel and something else to sort of track, and it moves the communication, like, out of email and into Slack, into another channel. But then you still got to deal with it there, however it is that you can deal with it, right? I mean, I give, I probably, Slack is easier for me to track than email, right? But I do turn it off when I've got, when I've got work to do that I need to do uninterrupted. And people understand that. I mean, they know I'm not, like, sort of like always, there. But, that said, if John, it fires something at me in Slack, I usually pick that up, like, right away because, well, he's the boss, right? So, but if Sarah sends me something, I just ignore it for days. No. No, I don't do that. So it's just, again, it's just another tool, and you sort of have to set those communications expectations and stuff to put stuff together. Yes?
I have a lot of confusion about Slack. I'm trying to wrap my arms around it. So if I kind of say words that don't mean anything, just about a month ago, a director of one of our programs came back from some conference. He said, "Oh, Slack is wonderful. Let's do it." And I said, "Do what?" I'd never heard of it before. I'm trying to understand how it's used, what case scenarios it could be used. I asked, is there an expert, Slack expert I could talk to? No one had a clue. And I'm trying to understand the difference between this and a mailing list. You said you stopped using mailing lists. You're not using chat. Is this just for just small integrated groups? Is it just tech communications? Is Slack its own communications platform, or does it have to be layered on top of Gmail or something else? I mean, I have a lot of questions. I just don't know.
Well, sign up for the conference Slack and dive in and see what happens. It is its own standalone platform, right? So it's not integrated with anything else. You can log in using your Google credentials or your Facebook credentials. It does that sort of open authentication type stuff. But it's a standalone platform. It's a hosted platform, so at the moment, there's no sort of enterprise version that you can take behind your firewall. That's apparently coming. Right now, most of the use is by technical people in relatively small teams, but we're starting to see that sort of spread out. I mean, we're starting to engage faculty with it, and next year I can probably do a follow-up and let you know how that works out. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the sticking points I got hit with is, what can you do with Slack for free? So I went to slack.com, and the options were limited with the free version of Slack. It seemed that you had to pay a subscription to get better integration with everything else.
Yep.
But I was directed, we only want it for free.
Yeah.
I said, well,
Yeah,
we can't
yeah.
get it for free if you
So-
want to do all this other stuff.
Yeah,
It does limit some of the integrations, and, you know, we're using it for free at John Marshall Law School in Atlanta. So, to me, the limitations are, you don't get to search every message, but you get the last 10,000 messages. That's a lot of messages. You know, granted, you guys have a boatload more in a year, but 10,000 messages in a year, that's a lot to search.
Well, that's it. You use Slack as your messaging platform.
But if you use it for free, you only get 10,000 messages to search. If you use the enterprise version, you can search back to the day you installed it.
Okay, but clarify for me. That's if you use Slack as your messaging platform.
Right. That's what it is. I mean, if you're using any other messaging platform, you got to put it down, and you got to pick up Slack. Now, as Nick mentioned before, there are integrations with like IRC, and there's integrations with Jabber, but frankly, they're not that exciting unless you already use IRC a lot, in which case you might find Slack a little odd. But yeah, I mean, Slack is a communications platform, so it is what you're going to use for chat, and the 10,000 message limit is a significant hurdle. I mean, you know, one of the reasons why we switched, or why we decided to pay for it, there were two reasons. One was a 10,000 message thing. We hit that actually weirdly fast. It sneaks up on you. And then the other thing is the integrations, right? So you're limited,
You're limited to 5 integrations.
Right, on the free version, yeah.
Per person though, so you could have everybody.
Yeah, you can.
5 and you end up with all you need.
Yeah, you can spread it around, but the problem is trying to explain to some people what an integration is and how it works. So we just decided to do that's so we were like, okay, you know what, enough of that, and we paid for it, and it costs. It's not inexpensive actually. I mean, it's $6.95, $7.95 a month per user. If you pay for the year, there's like a certain discount. They are rolling out a nonprofit thing that, and actually I think I actually need to switch ours over. That basically gives you full access for free if you're a 501c3 or an educational institution or anything like that. So, but you kind of have to jump into it. I mean, it's one of those things where you can't just sort of. I mean, we actually started ours. Dan, who's our system administrator, who's not here. You know, when we were looking for a reason we were looking for something to replace Gtalk for chat. He's like, "What about this Slack thing?" And I was like, "Okay." So I went and I set it up. You know, because I saw that it was a free for 10,000 messages. I was like, "Yeah, I can work with that." I set it up. I got Dan in there. We're sort of poking around the edges and we're going, "Well, this is actually kind of dull because, you know, you got to have it's one of those things you only see." It's like kind of like being in a bar by yourself, right? It's not a lot of fun. Matter of fact, it's really lonely and probably sad. But you get a lot of people in there and suddenly it's a party, right? And that's kind of what happened. I mean, once we got everybody in, you know, and we said, we're going to use this, I mean, we made a decision, right? We're going to use Slack instead of Google Talk. And we didn't talk about dropping the email list. That just sort of happened, right? But we're going to use Slack instead of Google Talk for, communication. And we got everybody in, and we had a little GoToWebinar meeting, and I showed people around the interface, and everybody jumped in, and next thing you know, we're all chatting, and everything's going on, and suddenly, nobody's sending anybody email anymore, right? Matter of fact, when I get email I sent Dan an email last week, and he's like, "Why'd you send me email? Why didn't you put it in Slack?" I'm like, "Sorry, it was an email, I forwarded it. I'm sorry. I'll copy and paste next time." But it's a matter of making that decision to sort of make that jump into that platform. Does that help at all, or?
Still vague.
It is kind of vague, unless
You have to get integration for things like calendaring and video conferencing, or is that built in?
no, those are actually separate things. So you still need. It doesn't include, like, there's not built-in like calendaring stuff, for example. So it's really more about sort of interpersonal communication type stuff. They actually have they bought, I can't remember the name. Yeah, So they're adding chat and video conferencing. It's not there yet. We've played around with it a little bit. It's a little wobbly. So they're sort of building the platform out, you know, as we sort of speak about it. So
Two questions.
Yeah.
One, so I'm in a library, and I think a lot of things people like is to be in on all the conversations that are happening about different projects. So this seems really interesting. Is it all opt-in though? So mailing lists are usually you sign people up for them, and then you have to manage who to add to which list as they come and go. Is this one that anybody can add themselves, or can you create? Okay.
yeah, you can do both, right? Okay. So you can add people to it by way of invite. They can join sort of automatically. What it does is when you create an organization, when you create a community, it takes the domain part of your email address, and it basically says everybody who's got cali.org can sign up for this. They just have to put in their cali.org email and go, ooh, we know what to connect them to. And then you can set certain channels for people to auto-subscribe, right? So when you go to the CALIcon community, you're automatically subscribed to the general channel and to the housekeeping channel. And then you can pick the other channels that you might want to join, right? So room, if you're in a room, you can do that. If you want to keep track of the tweets that people are sending, you can do that sort of thing. But it's an opt-in, and you can opt out too. We have about 15, 18 channels. Not ever, I'm subscribed to them all, I think. I might be missing a couple, but that's because I like to keep, I'm nosy. So, but I know that some channels, like the engineering channel, only has like 4 people, right? That'd be us. I don't really fancy myself an engineer, but we sort of use it to, makes Dan happy. I hope you're watching, Dan. Did that?
And then my second question was, you said you like it because it's easier to track than email. And my mind went to, but email, I can immediately like calendar something for a reminder. I know whether I've read it. I can mark it as unread. What sort of features are in this? At least, how do you use it?
Yeah. So it does show you read and unread stuff. So let me just go back here. Yeah, there we go. So for example, we can see that like right now there's news. So this news is glowing because there are things I haven't read in news yet, right? So if I go to, let's see, let me get my mouse cursor over there. If I go to the news channel, it tells me that there are 5 posts, 5 new messages since the last time I looked here. Okay. Now it doesn't have the calendaring integration yet. That's something that they're supposed to be working on, and that is a thing, right? I mean, that's a missing feature, especially at sort of the enterprising level. I guess software developers don't make appointments, which is probably true. But does that help a little, or?
Well, do you use something else then in order to keep, like if you're doing projects, having an email sort of trigger that you need to follow up with this in a certain amount of time?
I actually use Trello, okay, which is wired into this too. And I use Trello to track like project. That's a different presentation. I'm not doing that one this year, but I might switch to something else. But yeah, and then I still use email, especially when I'm communicating with people like outside of CALI. I mean, we use Google Apps inside of CALI also. So even though we have shared calendars and stuff. So my Google Calendar is always open too. And so it's like one of those things where like it's the changes that it makes to the way you communicate with your colleagues are subtle sometimes, but I think they're important, and I think it does make communication easier. So plus it's got like an unlimited supply of emoji. So, and you can create your own. There's a little, we have time at the end. Yes?
Searching online real quick, it looks like If This Then That does do Google Calendar integration also.
Oh, does they?
There's another one called Zapier. That does the same.
Yeah, there are ways to do it. I just haven't explored them all, and there's a community growing as Slack has gotten more and more popular. There is a community growing around like sort of what's going on there. So, it's interesting. Nick?
Why Slack is opposed to HipChat, which is a heck of a lot cheaper?
Is it?
It does all the same things.
I don't know, I looked at HipChat and there was something about it that just didn't, I don't know.
It's not as pretty.
Yeah, that could have been it. I mean, frankly.
That's the only thing that I see about it, is UI is not as pretty.
Yeah.
It's very flat.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really looked at HipChat that much because this sort of popped up at like just the right time, so I don't have an answer to that question.
HipChat's been around for years.
Yeah, it has been
They
around.
have a lot more stability than Slack. My problem with Slack is they grew so fast, so quickly, that someday they're either going to kill off the free version and force everybody to move over to the paid version, or they're going to disappear randomly or get acquired by somebody else who's going to double the price. And I don't want to, I have trouble trusting Slack.
Well, that's because it's new.
It's
It is really
It doesn't have we're using it internally at Justia, and it's fine, but we're using it in a way that we haven't thrown all our eggs in it yet.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we use it in our engineering team uses it, one other team uses it we have our own Slack groups rather than one big Slack thing, but we haven't put the whole company on it yet. One, because at $7 a person in a company of 100 people, that's a lot of money to throw down per month.
Yeah.
And two, because I don't trust that Slack's going to be here in 12 months. It's not the same. I mean,
Yeah,
you mentioned Slack came out of a company that tried something and shut it down a year later.
Yeah. Right. Well, no, that's true. But the game didn't work. Yeah, but Flickr came out of a game too. The guy who's behind this, his name is like Butterworth. He's actually a failed game developer. Because Flickr came out of the game also. Yeah, out of his game. They were trying to build a massive role-playing game, and they had this thing for sharing screenshots and stuff. That became Flickr. The game died. And then, but he tried, he took his Yahoo money and tried again, and that game didn't really work, but now it's Slack. And yeah, it's new. I mean, we just have a few eggs, right? So, my sense is I can get, it wouldn't be the first time I've had a platform collapse out from under me either. So, but we don't, if Slack goes away tomorrow, I mean, it's not like it's our sole store for documents, for example. It's also not our main, it is where like there's a lot of that chat history and stuff. We had that with Gtalk, right? Because that gets wired into your Gmail and you can do all the searching and stuff. But it lacked groups, so we couldn't, and that was one of the things, like we couldn't bring a bunch of people together to talk about something or that kind of thing. So yeah, Slack could be gone in a year. I don't think he'll sell it to a big company because he got burned on Flickr and he's still got a ton of money. So I think he'll keep it around or shut it down. I don't think he'll sell it. I'm not sure who'd buy it either.
Well, somebody's going to buy it who wants a communication platform.
Yeah,
If
maybe.
anybody bought it, it's probably going to be Google or Microsoft.
Yeah, but Google's, maybe.
Google uses Slack.
Do they?
Do they really?
They had a Slack set up for I/O this year.
Did they?
It was in
Yeah.
Slack.
Well, see, there you go. We're in good company. So.
Well, but the problem with the Google, like, University of Richmond has a big issue with equating staff use Google. There's lots of weird reasons, but, so we have to look at it. It's very interesting. So our students are on a Google platform and we are not. So, and our students love all the Google tools, but we can't use them. And so we're always looking for ways to bridge. Since the easy solution would just put all of us on Google, but.
Yeah, I mean, there's issues with. Yeah, I mean, we've had issues with using Google with sort of like getting people into it and that sort of stuff that they're kind of a drag. Yes, Tom.
I think at some point or other in our history, and you'll see the developers sitting down in the second row start to wince when I even talk about this. We've used every form of collaborative software known to man, and all of them are somewhat vulnerable to something that you kind of sped by in the early part of the presentation, which is essentially encouraging participation, particularly from people who are, for whatever reason, a little more shy and retiring about what they do. Are there specific strategies for that you've used for that? Because I can see the same sort of differentials in the CALI staff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the thing is that, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it is a communication platform, and it is about people using it. I mean, you know, after the initial excitement wore off, you know, I mean, we went through those first 10,000 messages in the first few months, right? And since then, we've, you know, sort of calmed down a little bit. And certain members of the CALI staff have now become adept at ignoring Slack like they ignore email, right? So it's not, so yeah, I mean, it's not a panacea. Yeah, I mean, it's a thing, right? I mean, all these communication tools, at the end of the day, really only work, you sort of get out of it what you put in, right? And so if you get enough buy-in and enough people are using it, then it works for you, right? And we're in that position, right? Enough of us use it, and we do we do interesting things with it, and it works well for us. And it actually works better than any other set of tools, because we've tried them all except for HipChat and a few other things that sort of never like lined up when, you know, when we were looking for stuff. But we've tried them all, and you know, my preference is to have something that's open source and free that I can just have living on one of my servers, right? I mean, I would run my own Jabber thing. I have in the past. Matter of fact, there may be a server sitting in Chicago that's still running Jabber. But but that's really not relevant to this discussion. But the thing is that, you know, when and it is a lot, like Nick said, it's pretty, right? So it was easy to get people look at it and they go, oh, it looks nice, and then they try it and it's like, oh, it works for what I think it's going to work for. You know, it does what Elmer said it was due, you know? Because sometimes Elmer gets going and then people start clicking on things and they're going like, damn it, Elmer, this doesn't work. And it's like, well, yeah, you know, I got to code it a little bit more. So, you know, so it's, you know, it is one of those things. I mean, you know, and you know, and John asks me about once every 3 months, you know, it's like, so are they going to be around in a year? I'm like, I don't know, are we going to be around in a year? Probably, you know. And then if they're not, I mean, the only thing that would stop us real fast would be if it disappeared like overnight, like if they just pulled the plug on it, because otherwise we get like, you know, we take occasional dumps of the JSON stuff and we can capture a lot of stuff out, and frankly most of the chat stuff is ephemeral anyway because we can't remember what we were talking about well enough to search it. So, you know, there's not a lot of, well, you know, that's, you can never find, you know, I don't know, so it's one of those things. Anybody else? Yes.
Would you say it takes some level of technical skill just to use it?
No, I don't think so. I mean, y'all have been playing around with it a little bit.
Yeah,
somebody, anybody?
Yeah,
it's just type in the box, yeah.
But we're dealing, this is a more technical crowd.
Oh.
I have to work with a bunch of lawyers who are intimidated by an electrical plug.
Well, if they can type in a box.
Some can't.
Okay, well, see, you have another problem, right? so that's another problem, right? And that's actually a real problem too, right? I mean, it's not. I mean, yeah, we're, you know, probably pretty all pretty technically inclined, and so we can kind of laugh. But that's actually a real problem, right? I mean, you know, and it's just like introducing any other piece of software. There's a learning curve, right? I happen to think on Slack it's relatively low, but you know, in a lot of ways, Slack has the same level of accessibility in terms of like ease of use as Facebook does, right? So you just sort of, you get a box, you start typing, and then, you know, and then things can happen, right? You know, and the best way to kind of get people to try it is to just sort of get them to try it. Because you can talk about it all day, but, you know, it's one of those things that you just sort of have to get in there and work with it for a little bit and see what happens, right? And it doesn't always take. I tried getting the Technoids mailing list to use it, and that was a dud, because those people, man, I don't know, anyway. Yeah, I know, Nick's laughing.
Right now.
Huh?
I'm logged into the Technoid space right now.
Yeah, see, and how quiet is it there?
I'm getting a few messages of people who can't make the jump over.
Oh, okay, well, that's fine. Tom, did you have another hand back there? Were you?
I was just going to editorialize. In the year 2015, if you've got people who can't type text into a box, it's a ploy. It's a ploy. That's all it is.
Yeah, if they don't want to do that, they're not going to do it. They can, you know, and that's.
They can't send a text message on their phone.
Well, these are the people who were ordering me to implement Slack.
Right. Well, then tell them here I implement it.
When I'm thinking, I can't say it. Are you crazy?
Well, you set it up for them and you go, here it is. And then, you know, your job is done, right? I mean, they'll, you know, they, I mean.
I'm ready to march into that. I'm like,
Yeah.
Start small. You don't have to go hog wild. I mean, I use it with a non-technical group, and it's really such a no-brainer.
So this is my contact info, if you want to try and, you know, and I also have, I've got a pocket full of business cards if anybody wants to grab those. But we're closing in on getting in the lunch line. So lunch is actually, this is a public service announcement. Lunch is actually out the front doors and directly across the green space in Driscoll Hall. And there will be, I think there are going to be 3 stations set up with dual sides, so it'll be like 6 lines. So it should move pretty quick. We shouldn't see, anybody who was in Vegas, remember the lines in Vegas?
Yes.
Yeah, those are awesome. So they, I guess, yeah, I'm kind of done. Yep.